The wind howled across the frozen wasteland like a dying beast. Sarah Chen pulled her torn jacket tighter around the small bundle in her arms, but she could feel the cold seeping through the threadbare fabric. Ah! Her breath came out in sharp white, puffs that froze and fell like tiny crystals. "Hush now, little one," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. The baby in her arms had stopped crying hours ago. It terrified her more than the alien warships circling overhead. 3 days. That's how long it had been since the Dominion forces had glassed New Geneva. 3 days since she'd watched her husband Marcus disappear in a flash of blue plasma. 3 days since she'd grabbed baby Emma and run into the mountains with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Now, crouched behind a fallen tree trunk on this godforsaken moon, Sarah knew they weren't going to make it. The evacuation ships had stopped coming. The resistance channels had gone silent. Even the emergency beacons had died. She looked down at Emma's tiny face, pale as the snow around them. The baby's lips were turning blue. "Rockabye, baby." In the treetop, Sarah began to sing, her voice cracking. "When the wind blows, the cradle will rock." The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, singing about cradles and treetops, while alien death machines hunted the last survivors of humanity. But it was all she had left to give. "When the bow breaks, the cradle will fall." A sound made her stop. Not the wind, not the distant rumble of Dominion patrol. Craft footsteps heavy, deliberate. Crunching through the snow with mechanical precision, Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows, clutching Emma so tight the baby let out a weak whimper. Through the swirling snow, she could make out a dark shape moving between the dead trees. Too tall to be human. Too fluid to be fully machine. A Dominion hunter. Sarah closed her eyes and held her breath. These things could track body heat from a mile away. Could hear a heartbeat through solid rock. It found them. The footsteps stopped. Sarah opened her eyes. The hunter stood 15 feet away, its sleek black armor gleaming despite the storm. Red optical sensors swept back and forth like the eyes of some ancient predator. In its hands, it held a weapon that could turn a human into vapor in less than a second. This was it. This was how humanity's story ended. Not with heroes and glory, but with a mother and child freezing to death in an alien winter. The hunter's head turned toward their hiding spot. Sarah closed her eyes and began to sing again. If these were their final moments, at least Emma would hear her mother's voice. "And down will come baby, cradle and all, ... The footsteps resumed. But they weren't moving toward her. They were moving away. Sarah's eyes snapped open. The hunter was walking in the opposite direction, its sensors scanning the forest behind them. As if it hadn't detected them at all, as if something else had caught its attention. That's when she heard it, another sound rising above the wind. Distant but growing closer. Engines, human engines. Chapter 2. The unlikely saviors. The ship that descended through the storm looked like it had been built from spare parts and held together with prayers. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, some polished bright, others blackened by plasma burns. Mismatched engines sputtered and roared as it fought against the wind. Sarah had never seen anything more beautiful. The ship touched down in a clearing 50 yards away, its landing thrusters melting the snow into dirty slush. A cargo ramp dropped. With a grinding screech of metal, 3 figures emerged into the storm. The first was a woman, tall and lean, with the kind of scars that told stories. Her dark skin was marked with intricate tattoos that seemed to shift and move in the swirling snow. She carried herself like someone who had stared death in the face and laughed. Behind her came a man who looked like he'd been carved from granite. Broad shoulders, square jaw, and eyes that missed nothing. His left arm was clearly mechanical, the advanced prosthetic, moving with fluid precision as he swept the area with his rifle. The third figure made Sarah's breath catch. It looked almost human, but the blue-white glow beneath its translucent skin gave it away. An AI construct. It's a kind of technology that should have been impossible. "Zara, I'm reading multiple heat signatures," the construct said, its voice carrying a musical quality that no human throat could produce. 3 hunters, moving in a search pattern. They haven't detected the survivors yet. The woman Zara grinned. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Good, let's keep it that way. Rico, how long do we have? The big man checked something on his wrist display. Dominion reinforcements in 12 minutes? Need to move fast. We always need to move fast, Zara muttered. She raised her voice, calling out across the snow. Survivors, we know you're out there. Time to go. Zara wanted to run to them. But years of hiding had taught her caution. What if this was a trap? What if the Dominion had learned to mimic human technology? As if reading her thoughts, Zara pulled something from her belt. A small device that projected a hologram into the air. The symbol that appeared made Sarah's heart skip. The phoenix. The symbol of the Terran resistance. Sarah stumbled out from behind the fallen tree. Emma clutched to her chest. Here, we're here. All three rescuers turned toward her, and she saw something flicker across their faces. Not just relief, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like ... hope. Mother and child, the AI construct observed, tilting its head in a way that seemed perfectly human. Approximately 72 hours without adequate shelter or nutrition. The infant's core temperature is dangerously low. Rico was already moving, his heavy boots pounding through the snow. When he reached Sarah, he didn't hesitate to wrap both her and Emma in a thermal blanket that seemed to radiate warmth. Got you, he said simply. His voice was surprisingly gentle for such a big man. You're safe now. Safe. Sarah laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Nowhere is safe. They destroyed everything, everyone. Zara jogged up beside them, her eyes scanning the forest. Not everyone. There are pockets of resistance all across the galaxy. Hidden colonies. Secret bases. People who refuse to give up. Dominion thinks they've won, the AI added, moving with that eerie fluid grace. But they underestimated something fundamental about your species. What's that? Sarah asked. Zara's grin returned, sharp as a blade. They underestimated how incredibly stubborn humans can be. A distant roar echoed across the mountains. Sound of Dominion dropships, still far away but getting closer. Time to go, Rico announced, scooping Sarah and Emma up like they weighed nothing. Save the inspirational speeches for when we're not about to be vaporized. As they ran toward the ship, Sarah caught sight of movement in the trees. 3 dark shapes converging on their position with mechanical precision. The hunters had found them. Contact, Zara shouted, spinning and raising a weapon that looked like it belonged in a museum. But when she pulled the trigger, the beam that lanced out was anything but ancient. It struck the nearest hunter center mass, and the alien machine simply ... disintegrated. Double quotes, how? Sarah gasped. Human ingenuity. Zara called back, firing again. We might not have their technology, but we've got something they don't.
What? Where?
Too crazy to know when we're beaten. They reached the ship as the remaining hunters emerged from the tree line. Rico bundled Sarah and Emma up the ramp while Zara and the AI laid down covering fire. The cargo bay smelled of motor oil and ozone, but to Sarah, it smelled like salvation. Punch it. Zara yelled as she dove through the closing ramp. The ship lurched skyward, engines screaming in protest. Through the small porthole, Sarah watched the ground fall away, taking with it the frozen hell that had nearly become their grave. But as they climbed toward the stars, something else caught her attention. On the tactical display mounted on the bulkhead, she could see other ships. Dozens of them scattered across the system, all broadcasting the same signal. The Phoenix symbol. How many? She whispered. The AI construct who had introduced himself as Chorus followed her gaze. Currently, 3,412 active resistance vessels. Approximately 2 million surviving humans across 47 different systems. Sarah felt tears freezing on her cheeks. I thought, ... I thought we were alone. Never, Zara said firmly. That's the first thing you learn in the Resistance. As long as one human draws breath, none of us are alone. The ship shuddered as they broke atmosphere, and Sarah got her first look at space in 3 days. What she saw made her gasp. The Dominion fleet was massive, hundreds of ships, each one larger than a city. Their dark holes blotted out the stars like a cancer spreading across the galaxy, but scattered among them, like fireflies dancing around sleeping giants, were the resistance ships. Small, patched together, barely holding together, but they were there, and they were fighting.
"Welcome to the war," Rico said quietly.
The real war.
As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. ## Chapter 3. The Human Factor 3 Dominion Interceptors. Closing fast, announced a voice from the ship's comm system. Sarah couldn't see the pilot, but she sounded young. Too young to be flying a ship through a war zone? How young? Sarah found herself asking. Kira's 17, Sarah said, checking her weapon. Been flying since she was 12. Best pilot in the sector. 17. It's the same age Sarah had been when she first held Emma's father in her arms. Now that girl was all that stood between them and the void. The ship bucked violently as something exploded nearby. Through the porthole, Sarah could see the interceptor's sleek silver needles that moved through space like living things. Their weapons lit up the darkness with streams of blue death. "They're trying to disable our engines," Chorus observed with that strange calm that only A's seemed to possess. Standard Dominion capture protocol. "They want prisoners." "Why?" Sarah asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Rico's jaw tightened. "Information. They want to know where the other survivors are hiding." What? Another impact. Stronger this time. The lights flickered, and Sarah heard the concerning sound of something important breaking deep in the ship's hull. "I can't shake them." Kira's voice crackled over the comm. "They're too fast." "Then we don't run," Zara said. She was strapping herself into what looked like a gunner's chair. "We do what humans do best, which is..." Zara's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. "Cheat." The ship suddenly flipped end over end, a maneuver that should have liquefied everyone aboard. But somehow, the artificial gravity held. Sarah found herself staring out the porthole at the approaching interceptors, now directly ahead of them. "Kira, you beautiful lunatic," Zara whooped, her hands flying over targeting controls, threading the needle. "Shh. What's threading the needle?" Sarah shouted over the roar of engines. "Something that should be impossible," Chorus replied, "which is precisely why it might work." The interceptors were firing now, streams of plasma lighting up space around them. Ship was part of her body, weaving between the deadly beams with impossible precision. "Almost there," she called out. "Everyone hold on to something." Sarah clutched Emma tighter and grabbed a support beam. The ship was heading straight for the largest interceptor, on what looked like a collision course. "Kira," Rico bellowed, "trust me." At the last possible second, Kira cut the engines and fired the maneuvering thrusters. The ship spun like a coin, slipping past the interceptor's hull with inches to spare. As they passed, Zara fired everything they had at point-blank range. The interceptor came apart like a flower blooming in reverse. "One down," Zara called out. But the other two were already adjusting, moving to bracket them from both sides. And in the distance, Sarah could see more ships moving their way. Bigger ships. "Can't fight them all," she said. "We don't have to," Chorus replied. "We just have to buy time." "Time for what?" Her answer came in the form of new contacts appearing on the tactical display. Ships emerging from behind asteroids, dropping out of hyperspace, rising from the shadow of the moon below, all of them flying resistance colors. "The cavalry?" Rico said with satisfaction. What followed was the most beautiful and terrible thing Sarah had ever seen. The resistance ships were outnumbered 10-1, outgunned by an even wider margin. By every logical measure, they should have been slaughtered instead. They fought like demons. Sarah watched a converted mining barge ram a Dominion cruiser, its hull splitting open like a ripe fruit but taking the enemy ship with it. She saw a squadron of fighter civilian craft hastily armed with salvaged weapons swarm a massive battleship like angry wasps, their combined fire punching through shields that should have been impenetrable. "How?" she whispered. "Humans don't fight like other species," Chorus explained, his glowing eyes reflecting the battle outside. "Other races calculate odds, minimize losses, fight according to doctrine. Humans fight like the universe owes them something. A proximity alarm shrieked as one of the remaining interceptors dove toward them, weapons charging for a killing shot. Kira threw the ship into another impossible turn, but Sarah could see they weren't going to make it. That's when Emma spoke her first word. Not mama or dada. Like most babies. No. The word that came from her tiny lips, clear as a bell, despite the chaos around them, was light. And suddenly, there was. It erupted from the baby's eyes, a brilliant golden radiance that filled the cargo bay. Not painful to look at, but warm and comforting, like sunrise after the longest night. The light passed through the hull as if it weren't there, reaching out into space. The interceptor that had been bearing down on them suddenly veered away, its pilot's panicked voice audible over the radio, unknown energy signature, withdrawing to safe distance. All across the battlefield, Dominion ships began to pull back. Not retreating exactly, but hesitating. Double quotes. What the hell was that? Zara demanded, staring at Emma with something approaching. I don't know, Sarah said honestly. The light was already fading, and Emma had closed her eyes, seemingly exhausted by whatever had just happened. Chorus tilted his head, processing something only he could perceive. Fascinating. The energy signature is unlike anything in Dominion. Databases, they single, quotes, confused is good, Rico said. Confused means they're not shooting at us. For now, Zara added grimly. But they'll figure it out eventually. They always do. Kira's voice crackled over the come again, but this time she sounded different. Older somehow. Jump coordinates locked in. We're going home. Home, Sarah asked. Haven't you figured it out yet? Zara said, settling back in her seat as the ship prepared for hyperspace. There is no home anymore. Hasn't been since the war started. Home is wherever we are, when we're together. The stars stretched into lines as they jumped, leaving the battle and the mysterious incident with Emma behind. But as Sarah looked down at her sleeping daughter, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. The baby who had been born during humanity's darkest hour would survive the destruction of worlds and the fury of alien invaders, was something new, something the Dominion had never encountered. Before something that might just tip the balance of an impossible war. Chapter 4. The revelation, the resistance base, was hidden inside a hollow asteroid, drifting in the debris field of what had once been the Kepler system. Sarah had expected something crude, thrown together from salvaged parts. Herself walking through corridors that hummed with advanced technology, past hydroponic gardens that shouldn't have been possible in zero gravity. How long has this place been here? She asked as Chorus led her to the medical bay. 18 months, he replied. We've been busy. That was an understatement. Through observation windows, Sarah could see workshops where humans and A's worked, side by side, building weapons that glowed with the same impossible energy she'd seen from Emma. Laboratories, where scientists bent over equations that seemed to twist in dimensions the human eye couldn't follow. What is this place? Evolution, Chorus said simply. Your species is adapting faster than anyone thought possible. The Dominion assumed that conquering Earth would break human resistance. Instead, it seems to have ... unlocked something. They reached the medical bay, where Emma was undergoing tests under the gentle supervision of Dr. Elena Vasquez, a woman whose silver hair spoke of decades spent pushing the boundaries of science. Her cellular structure is completely normal. Dr. Vasquez was explaining to a group of fascinated researchers, human in every measurable way. But the quantum resonance patterns, she gestured to a display showing swirling patterns of light. I've never seen anything like it. Is she in danger? Sarah asked, the mother in her overriding everything else. Quite the opposite, Dr. Vasquez smiled. She's perfectly healthy. More than healthy, actually. Her neural development is accelerated, her immune system is off the charts. Her brain is processing information at rates that should be impossible for someone her age. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled air. What does that mean? Before Dr. Vasquez could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Red lights flashed as an automated voice announced, all personnel to battle stations. Dominion fleet approaching. All personnel to battle stations. How did they find us? Someone shouted. They didn't, came a voice from the entrance, with a kind of weathered face that spoke of too many battles fought and too many friends lost. His uniform bore the insignia of a fleet admiral, but there was something familiar about him, something that made Sarah's heart stop. Marcus. Her husband looked older, scarred by months of war, but it was definitely him. The man she'd watched die in the glassing of New Geneva stood before her, very much alive. "Hello, love," he said softly. "Sorry I'm late." Sarah wanted to run to him, to hold him, to demand explanations. But Emma chose that moment to wake up, and when she did, the lights throughout the medical bay began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. "That's what I was afraid of," Marcus said grimly. "She's broadcasting." "Broadcasting what?" Sarah demanded. "A signal," Dr. Vasquez explained, her excitement warring with concern. "Every time her emotional state changes, she emits a quantum pulse. The Dominion can track it. Then we have to shield her somehow." "No," Marcus interrupted. "We don't." Stared at him. "What?" "This is why I faked my death. I let you think I was gone." Marcus moved to Emma's side, and the baby gurgled happily at the sight of him. "Because we needed the Dominion to find us. We needed them to see what she is. What she is." The voice was deadly quiet. Marcus looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. "Hope. The next step," he said. "Human evolution, accelerated by the trauma of near extinction. Emma isn't just our daughter Sarah. She's the first of something new. Something the Dominion's psychic domination can't touch." The base shuddered as the first Dominion ships entered weapons range. Through the viewports, Sarah could see them, a fleet that dwarfed even the armada that had destroyed Earth. Hundreds of massive vessels, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "This is Admiral Chen to all resistance." Forces, Marcus spoke into his communicator. "Execute Protocol 7. Protocol 7. Zara appeared at Sarah's shoulder, looking stunned. "Marcus, that's suicide," Rico finished, joining them. "You're talking about revealing every hidden base, every safe house, every survivor in the galaxy." "Not revealing," Marcus corrected, "awakening." He gestured to the tactical display where new contacts were appearing across the galaxy. Not ships, this time, but something else. Points of light, scattered across dozens of star systems. "What are those?" Sarah whispered. "Children," Dr. Vasquez said softly. "Like Emma, born during or after the invasion. There are thousands of them, Sarah. Hidden in refugee camps, resistance bases, even on Dominion prison worlds. And they're all broadcasting now," Chorus added, his artificial eyes reflecting the pulsing lights. The same quantum signature, but amplified, coordinated. Sarah looked down at Emma, who was staring up at the stars with eyes that seemed far too old for her tiny face. "What are you?" But Emma didn't answer. Instead, she raised one tiny hand toward the viewports, and suddenly, the asteroid base wasn't hidden anymore. It was glowing. Not with reflected light, but with something deeper. Something that seemed to come from the quantum foam itself. And across the galaxy, Sarah realized, every resistance base was doing the same thing. The Dominion fleet had come expecting to crush the last remnants of human resistance. Instead, they found themselves facing something they'd never encountered in 1,000 years of conquest. Hope made manifest. "The children are the weapon," Sarah breathed. "No," Marcus said quietly. "The children are the message." On the tactical display, the Dominion fleet had stopped advancing. For the first time since the war began, they seemed ... uncertain. "Message." Sarah looked at her husband, then at their glowing daughter. "What message?" Emma chose that moment too. "Speak again," her baby voice somehow carrying to every corner of the medical bay. But this time, it wasn't just one word. It was a song. The same lullaby Sarah had sung in the snow, but different somehow. Transformed. Where Sarah's version had been about falling and breaking, Emma's was about rising and becoming. And across the galaxy, thousands of other children began to sing along. ### epilogue. The new dawn 6 months later. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Resistance flagship Phoenix Rising, watching as the first joint human-AI colony ship prepared for launch. The vessel was beautiful in its impossibility, part grown, part built, incorporating technologies that neither species could have developed alone. "Second thoughts?" Marcus asked, joining her at the viewport. "About leaving?" Sarah shook her head. "This galaxy has too many ghosts. Time to make new ones." In her arms, Emma babbled happily, reaching for the stars visible through the transparent aluminum. She was walking now, talking in full sentences, and occasionally doing things that made the laws of physics weep. Just last week, she'd fixed a broken hyperdrive by humming at it. "The Dominion's still out there," Marcus pointed out. "Let them be," Sarah replied. "They can have this galaxy. We're going to build something better." It had taken 6 months for the full implications of Emma and the other children to become clear. They weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were something far more dangerous to an empire built on domination and fear. They were living proof that evolution doesn't stop. That species pushed to the brink don't just survive, they transcend. The Dominion's psychic control, their ability to break the will of conquered peoples, simply didn't work on the new generation. These children looked at Dominion overlords the way their parents might look at particularly unimpressive rocks. More importantly, they were teaching the adults to do the same. "Colony ship New Horizon, you are clear for departure," came the announcement over the ship's comm system. Sarah watched as the massive vessel began to move, its hybrid engines leaving trails of light that looked almost organic. Aboard were 10,000 humans, 500 AIs, and a dozen of the new children. They were heading for the Andromeda Galaxy, where they would build something unprecedented, a truly post-human civilization. "Think they'll make it?" Marcus asked.
They're human,
Sarah said simply. "Of course they'll make it. The question is what they'll become when they get there." Emma gurgled and pointed at something beyond the viewports. Sarah followed her daughters' gaze and saw what had caught her attention. Another fleet was jumping in. Not Dominion, those ships were too beautiful, too organic. These vessels seemed to be grown rather than built, their hulls rippling with patterns that hurt to look at directly. "First contact," Marcus breathed. The new ships arranged themselves in a perfect formation, clearly non-threatening but radiating a sense of vast intelligence. As they watched, one of the vessels projected a hologram into space, a complex mathematical proof that somehow conveyed peaceful intentions. "They've been watching," Chorus said, materializing beside them with that fluid grace AIs had perfected, "waiting to see what we would become." "And what have we become?" Sarah asked. Chorus tilted his head, considering something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. "Humans who refuse to be broken, AIs who choose to feel, children who dream in quantum equations." He paused. "Something worth meeting." Emma chose that moment to laugh, the clear, bright sound of a child who had never known a world without hope. And as her laughter echoed through the ship, Sarah swore she could hear it being answered from the alien vessels beyond. The war was over. Humanity had lost their homeworld, lost their innocence, lost any illusion that the universe was a safe place, but they had gained something infinitely more valuable. They had gained the stars themselves, and in the nurseries and schools scattered across the Resistance fleet, a new generation was growing up who would never know the meaning of the word impossible. Sarah Chen, who had once sung a lullaby to her dying child in the frozen wastes of an alien winter, now sang a different song. A song of new worlds and endless possibilities, of children who could touch the quantum foam and civilizations waiting to be born. The Dominion could keep their conquered galaxy. Humanity was going to build something better, something that would make the universe itself sing lullabies.